Rich Risings, good people. Rich Risings. It is 7:26, Tuesday, August 18th. Welcome to Enoch Grove Christian University's YouTube channel. I am Dr. Audra T. Jones, founding chancellor for EGCU. Thank you guys for being on. Thank you for catching the replay. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your hitting that subscribe button. If you like what we do, hit that subscribe button. I see you. Thank you guys. Thank you for being on. Thank you for sharing. If you're on other social media channels, encourage people to follow us and subscribe. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys for being on. If you are on other social media channels, make certain you encourage people to follow us and hit the subscribe button. Certain features are not available to us on YouTube until we have a certain amount of subscribers. Ha ha ha. Go figure that. So we're limited, but we're going to stay on this platform and hopefully add a link for those who are still on Facebook trying to find me going live and refuse to come over to YouTube. I'm going to try to see if we can do a link once I'm out of Facebook jail. Facebook has put me in a limited space as it relates to going live, which is why we ended up on YouTube. That time is coming to an end, we hope. Hoping by the end of, hopefully by this time next week, we will be able to connect a streaming link. And when I go live here, it'll go live on Facebook automatically. Let's hope and pray. So it is 7:28 on Tuesday, August 18th. I am on live early just because I want to make sure there are no technical challenges. The enemy is trying to stop this word in all kinds of ways, but I refuse. I refuse. The girl gets weary at times, so keep me in prayer. But we're going to give people one more minute to get on. I am on early. It's 7:29. Today's word is Micah 4. Today's word is Micah 4, a very short book of the Bible with a whole 7 chapters. So 7 chapters. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I see you guys. We are in Micah 4. We are in Micah 4 today. Micah 4. Micah 4, 7:29. We're going to give folks 1 minute. See you guys. Thank you for being on. See you guys. Thank you for being on. 7:30. I'm on a little early because I don't want any technical challenges. I don't want the enemy continuously trying to stop me from doing this word and from pouring into myself because I need it. Micah 4. Micah 4. Thank you guys for being on. Micah 4 is the word of the day. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow in unto it. 2. And many nations shall come and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Verse 3. And he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. Verse 4. But they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts hath spoken it. Verse 5, for all people will walk everyone in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord, our God, forever and ever. Verse 6, in that day, saith the Lord, will I assemble her that halteth, and I will gather her that is driven out, and her that I have afflicted. Verse 7, and I will make her that halted a remnant, and her that was cast far off a strong nation. And the Lord shall reign over them in Mount Zion from henceforth, even forever. Verse 8, and thou, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, unto thee shall it come. Even the first dominion, the kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem. Verse 9, now why dost thou cry out aloud? Is there no king in thee? Is thy counselor perished? For pangs have taken thee as a woman in travail. Verse 10, be in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. Whew, let me read that one again. This is verse 10. Be in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. Very specific. Verse 11, now also many nations are gathered against thee that say, let her be defiled, and let our eye look upon Zion. But they know not the thoughts of the Lord, neither understand they his counsel. For he shall gather them as the sheaves unto the floor. Verse 13, arise and thresh, O daughter of Zion. For I will make thine horn iron, and I will make thy hoofs brass, and thou shalt beat in pieces many people, and I will consecrate their gain unto the Lord, and their substance unto the Lord of the whole earth. Wow. So this is the book of Micah. We're in the book of Micah now. So we've entered into the book of Micah. One of the things that just came forth to me as I was rounding out the last book chapter, I'm sorry, the last verse in chapter 4 was how different the voice is from chapter to chapter based off of the author. Sometimes it's a smooth read, the choice of language, the time frame in which the word was written, who was in charge. All of those things contribute to the flow of the word. And as I was reading through Micah 1, 2, and 3, it became evident that that wasn't necessarily the best um, passage for us to discuss today. And so, again, I could see the flow and the ambiance of the read, but Micah 1, 2, and 3 were not best for us to read verbally. And when you start to read verbally, you hear things, the cadence is different. Micah is sometimes regarded as the prophet of the South. In Hebrew, his name is Micah, who is like God, or who from his mind emanates the thought of God. Micah prophesied against Israel and Judah, but emphasis was put on the sins of the southern kingdom of Judah. The book depicts the insensitive attitude of the people in their transgressions of the law and instructions of God. Micah, just as Joel, Obadiah, and Amos, predicted the imminent wrath of God upon the nation of Israel. The rich were exploiting the poor, the rulers were misleading the people, and the priests were compromising the word of God. The prophets of truth were told to keep quiet. Even so, in the midst of this, Micah was appointed to declare Israel's end, although he preached the restoration of Israel in the last days, and also prophesied the birth of the Messiah in Bethlehem. One of the most classic of Micah's utterances was the declaration that those who desire righteousness must do justice, love, and kindness, and walk humbly before the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Micah also foretold the fall of Samaria and Jerusalem. The last passage of the book ensures that the Lord would not be perpetually angry with his people, and all that his unchanging love for the children of Israel will redeem them in the future. All right, so that's a little background on the book of Micah. So here are some notes. Here's the notes for the day. When God has the final word, and again, forgive me, I'm still getting acclimated with various devices between YouTube and a tablet and a phone and a computer and all the things, and the Bible, the actual physical Bible, most importantly. Not that you can't read the Bible on your phone, because I do, but I usually read from the morning time. I read from the actual word. Micah 4 is a dramatic shift in tone. Remember, I just talked about that. I forgot that I had that in my notes, but again, I could hear it in the cadence. It's a dramatic shift in tone from Micah 1, 2, and 3. After warnings of judgment and consequences, the prophet gives us a glimpse of what God intends to establish: peace instead of warfare, restoration instead of rejection, strength instead of weakness, and hope beyond hardship. One of the strongest messages of the chapter is very simple: what you see right now is not necessarily how the story ends. Again, what you see and what you may be experiencing right now is not necessarily how the story ends. God can turn weapons into tools. Micah describes a future where swords become farming tools and spears are repurposed for cultivation. That is Micah 4 and 3. He talks about swords and plowshares and spears and pruning hooks. God, Micah describes a future where swords become farming tools and spears are repurposed for cultivation. Again, that's Micah 4 and 3. God doesn't merely stop conflict, he transforms what was designed for destruction into something capable of producing life. Isn't that something? God is a master at repurposing. The very thing connected to your struggle can become part of your testimony, wisdom, ministry, or future assignment. God doesn't waste the weapon, He can turn it into a tool. God's ways rise above the noise. Micah sees the mountain of the Lord established above the others, with people deliberately coming to seek God. That's Micah 4, verses 1 and 2. The picture is one of divine authority. Governments change, cultures shift, popular opinions come and go. God's truth does not need to compete for relevance. When everything around you is competing for your attention, God's direction must remain your, our highest reference point. Not every loud voice deserves a vote in your life. God doesn't just want visitors, He wants students. The nations don't simply come to admire God's presence. They come saying, in essence, teach us your ways so we can walk in your paths. That's Micah 4 and 2. That distinction matters. Knowing about God and allowing God to shape how we live are two different things. Spiritual maturity is demonstrated when revelation becomes application. The word isn't merely something to quote, it's something to walk out. God's kingdom is bigger than our circle. Micah sees many people and nations coming toward the Lord, which is Micah 4 and 2. This is bigger than one community, one background, one generation, one group of people, one person. It's bigger than you, it's bigger than me. God's redemptive plan reaches beyond the boundaries human beings often create. We should be careful not to make God small enough to fit inside of our preferences. Not about what we want, it's about what He wants. God's table has always been bigger than our guest list. God is still the final judge. Micah 4 and 3 presents God settling disputes and bringing judgment among nations. That means we don't have to spend our lives trying to personally correct every injustice, answer every accusation, or win every battle. Let me say that again. This must be my word. That means we don't have to spend our lives trying to personally correct every injustice, answer every accusation, or win every battle. This doesn't excuse us from pursuing justice. It reminds us that ultimate justice does not rest on our shoulders. Do what's right, speak when necessary, and remember who holds the final verdict. You don't have to fight every case when God is still on the throne. Peace is more than the absence of trouble. Micah gives a beautiful picture of people sitting beneath their own vines and fig trees without fear. Micah 4 and 4. This is peace with substance, safety, stability, provision, rest, and freedom from intimidation. God's vision isn't merely survival, it includes the ability to live without constantly waiting for the next disaster. There's a difference between having no current crisis and actually possessing peace, right? There's a difference. God's peace doesn't just quiet the battle, it settles the actual person inside, settles the spirit, settles us holistically. Everybody else's direction doesn't have to become yours. Hmm. Micah 4 and 5 acknowledges that other people will choose their own paths while God's people remain committed to Him. There is something powerful about that declaration. Faithfulness doesn't require popular approval. Faithfulness does not require popular approval. Cultures may shift, friends may change, trends may change. Your convictions don't have to move every time someone else's does. You can respect another person's choice without abandoning your own commitment. Everybody can choose their own lane. Just make sure you know yours and stay true to who you are. Be authentic. Be your own person. God has a special eye for the overlooked. Micah 4, 6, and 7 speaks of God gathering those who were lame, scattered, afflicted, or pushed aside, and forming strength from those very people. This is an extraordinary reversal. The people society might have considered damaged or disposable, or oftentimes just want to discard or treat badly for no reason, are precisely the people God gathers. Being wounded does not make you worthless. Being rejected does not make you unusable. Being overlooked does not mean that God has lost sight in you. People can count you out while God is still counting you very much in. Pain can be a chapter without being the conclusion. Pain can and will be a chapter without becoming the conclusion. Micah 4 doesn't pretend suffering won't happen. Verse 10 speaks about anguish, displacement, and captivity, but it also speaks about rescue. The Bible doesn't sell fantasy faith. Sometimes there is pain before deliverance, uncertainty before clarity, and disruption before restoration. But trouble does not automatically mean abandonment. Never interpret a difficult chapter as proof that God has stopped writing in your life. A painful page is still only a page. What looks like defeat may be setting us up for deliverance. Toward the end of the chapter, nations gather against Zion, believing they are witnessing her downfall. Micah says they do not understand God's purposes. That's Micah 4:11 and 12. That may be one of the most powerful ideas and concepts in this entire chapter. People can correctly observe your circumstances and still completely misunderstand what God is doing through them. People can correctly observe your circumstances and still completely misunderstand what God is doing through them. What looks like an ending from the outside may actually be positioning for restoration. Never allow someone else's interpretation of your season to become your prophecy. There may be situation, there may be this, I'm sorry, excuse me, guys. They may see the situation clearly and still have the ending completely wrong. The big message of Micah 4 is this. Micah 4 teaches us that God specializes in reversals. He specializes in reversals. Weapons become instruments of productivity. The scattered become gathered. The weak become strong. Fear gives way to security. Captivity gives way to rescue. Chaos eventually bows to God's order. And people who appear defeated discover that God was working through circumstances others completely misunderstood. So when life looks unfinished, Micah 4 gives us a reason not to panic over the middle of her story. The middle of our story. God has not surrendered the pen. Don't confuse your current condition with God's final conclusion. And lastly, Micah 4 reminds us that God can take what looks scattered, threatened, wounded, and defeated and write restoration into the very place where others expected an ending. Thank you for being on with me. Thank you. 4 minutes over, but I started on a little bit earlier. We're in a season of prayer. Continue to pray for those around you. Continue to pray for me. Continue to pray for your family and your friends. Thank you for being on. I love you. Have a wonderful, blessed day.